very much for this introduction. So basically, as I was told, I was based in American and also like positioned in supporting in Poland. And today I would like to talk about the Neurotech and aging brains. And as I can see in the audience, some people in my age, so basically you should take care. This is how technology can really help. Let's now show some examples. As I'm from Rutkowski, we are a CIBA team, Cognitive Behavioral Assistive Technology team, which is focusing on the development of systems, analysis, and evaluation. I think the analysis teams. So basically, we are developing methods to evaluate our brains. And what is very important, we also want to have the system team, because once you build some intervention system for us to be as sharp as possible, as long as possible, we want to measure it. And you will see this kind of story, how we measure it, and how beautiful these days machine learning AI can help. If you will be more interested, this is my website, this is our research website, supported by Google for Education. So basically my students and my colleagues are publishing our results there. But in this step today, usually I give a 1 hour talk, so this will be very quick overview. But I would like to show you kind of story how we move from the classical reactive brain-computer interfacing. When we use the technology, simple electrodes put outside of our heads, non-invasive, which we can use for communication, for the managing robots, etc. We slowly move to so-called passive BCI. When we want to use exactly the same technology but evaluating the well-being of the brain. And this is very important. We are living in an aging society. Japan is maybe one of the best examples. We are so many spectators here. Our bodies are aging well, but brains may be not so good. And also in the spirit of this meeting, I took a picture from the booklet, focusing on the Ikigai. The concept of Ikigai is the reason for being. It's really fantastic for preserving our well-being and really age well. So basically, the purpose of meeting, social connection, physical and mental health is very important. Lifelong learning, maybe many younger of us remember, we should really keep learning all the time, even for our brains. So basically, learning language in the late stage would also be fantastic. For example, Japanese. Resilience and so on. And also just to show you how the field is really growing, we organize every year open for students BCI neurotechnology summers, 3 schools. So it started like 3 years ago, we had several hundred people, 2 years ago, 3,000 people, and suddenly last year we had 82,000 participants. This is only possible because we do it on Zoom. So basically everybody can join. This really shows you how well you can people are interested in this topic, and basically contribute there, and I very much invite you, please join me in the year 2025. Next year around March, April. So let me quickly show you some of our former projects. And with me the framework, I also would like to advertise the concept of moving from classical artificial intelligence when we are thinking about reproducing human, maybe boring.
Maybe more interesting is thinking about the intelligence augmentation, IA. When we want to build the methods who will actually enhance us, support us, supplement us. And basically this would be very fantastic for making our life longer and more kind of prosperous. Nobody wants to have dementia. So those are the former projects of my student from the University of Tokyo. We developed various brain-computer interfacing, reactive and active, which we use for the spelling, so classical auditory BCI, when the student developed very nice headphones-based system, and we could use it for spelling like Japanese text. Other one was tactile, when we used the touch sensation, and basically here, myself that time, lying on the bed, stimulating through the bed, so like paralyzed person in the hospital. And in this case, we could send command, and this robot was executing the command. Limited number of commands, but was really fun. Through the thinking, through the interaction with your bed, you could really manage physical object. And the other one was visual. So this was the time when we were really thinking we are very limited. We use only vision, touch, and hearing. And that time I used to give lectures saying it's impossible to use smell or taste. And today, at the end of this lecture, I will show you we are really now challenging also the smell. Really fantastic modality, which we can use for interaction for the brain-computer interfacing. But mostly, it's very important for our aging brain. So what we actually do, and that's why we use machine learning, because standard signal processing is too weak for that. When we work with the brain signals, we basically have teeny tiny responses. So those are the voltages recorded on the skin level, which have the microvolt level, voltage. It's teeny tiny. Any eye blink, any movement is immediately millivolt much higher. Our power lines cause very huge damage. So basically, that's why we use, these days, I have no time to explain everything, but we use quite nice deep learning models which can really deal with that. What we also realized at that time, this famous aha response, which happened around 300 milliseconds when you interact with the stimuli or ignore, so this green and blue would be interaction, black and red when we ignore it. But also when we modulate the cognitive level of this an interaction, so basically the experiment will be more difficult, we can see beginning is always same because our brain always processes the sensory information same, but later on we can see little delay. And this is also what happened in the aging brain. Our aging brains are slowing down and having weaker responses. So what we really want to do, we would like to push this back, and like in this case, our elderly people could have as sharp brains as in the young age. And we really believe this is possible with technology. So quick overview, I have no time, but those are different BCIs my student developed. So basically each of them was like a master student and master project. Many auditory, Japanese, Chinese, we have also Chinese students. At that time it's very easy to transfer this for different languages later. And quite many tactile BCIs, even using for the wheelchair driving, very difficult one. And also like an interaction with robots, etc. What is also interesting, it's also possible to use it for arts. And we had a project when we used so-called active BCI, when the subject is our brain musician, this was like 10 years ago already, now we want to bring it back again, was basically trained to imagine like 5 musical accords. So basically he trained hard and his brain were really kind of like doing that. So let's listen to this very short music, very slow one, but this was really performing in the public, so they were doing like public concerts in the Tokyo Mini University of the Arts, so here in Tokyo, in Ueno, and let's listen a little bit and you will see how funky that was. So the piece is very slow, and basically also the real musicians quite often were helping him because we were running like 80% accuracy, so there were some mistakes, but then quite often the real musician could help him. But that's actually how you can also make it for the art. And imagine somebody who is paralyzed, cannot move at all. This is the only way to have the output from the brain, and do some fantastic stuff. Maybe do something when people did in the past. Great. So this is what we did before to control. But what is more interesting for me now is using passive modality of the brain-computer interface when we want to help aging people and mostly maybe detect that something is starting going wrong. And when you look at the statistics, it's really not looking good. Our societies are aging, so even with the United Nations have the sustainable goal number 3, good health and well-being for everybody, and for everybody we also mean for these elderly people who really need help. When we look at the numbers, it's really not looking good. All are going up. For a moment, we estimate about 50 million people globally suffering from dementia. This is really heavy cost, taking care. And it's really big pain because family members are losing their loved ones, they cannot communicate with them. So that's why we also know that actually quite often people who take care of those elderly, they die earlier because this is such a heavy burden. It's really heavy financial burden also. But there is also a positive thing, like World Health Organization published a nice booklet recently showing that there are quite many non-pharmacological possible interventions. There is no drug for dementia. Pharma really failed heavily. They spent billions of dollars and there is no chemical compound that could help. But according to WHO, lifestyle, our social life, our interactions can really help, so there is a way to do it. What is very important, dementia starts 20 years in advance. So when we think 65, no, this is already dementia. 45, maybe it's a time when we should measure it. And I can see in this audience, some maybe members would like to know. I also would like to know. So as engineer, basically we want to judge from outside, measuring the brain activity, whether this is healthy brain, beautiful, in full color, or maybe this is already something happening, due to Alzheimer or other dementias. There are many dementias, I have no time to do it. To explain this now. Also, when you look at the medical papers, this is kind of nice story of one very famous paper published, Ralph's edition was published last month in the Lancet Commission. So this is one of these huge multi-medical doctor papers. When in 2017, they identified several interventions. So this would be our way of life from the young age all the way to the later life. And basically, they found different changes, no smoking, et cetera, et cetera. 2 years later, they improved this picture, finding some more like depression, social isolation, etc. And last month, again, they published newer one, when they pushed some of the late life intervention all the way into the younger life. All of them are non-pharmacological interventions. So there are many ways we can do it. And basically, each person would like to know which is the best. It's not one model fits everybody. That's why we use machine learning to find which intervention. Elderly person will go for sports, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe more social life. COVID basically killed our social life. maybe this one. So basically, you want to measure and see the feedback. So looking at our fathers in the science, as Galileo Galilei said, measure what is measurable and make it measurable what is not. So basically, as an engineer also, we can also say, like Lord Kelvin, if you can measure it, you can improve it. So basically, we need a measure to do it. And what is tragic these days, most of the measure these days are so-called paper and pencil tests. So elderly person goes to the clinic and do this kind of boring paper and pencil test, which somebody can fail. If you are very creative, you can really fail badly this test, because it's really narrow, like, you're supposed to draw a clock. Clock must be round. Why not square, like, Clock could be also square. So basically, our concept is to completely remove it, like, and have it, like, technological, in this case, solution. So let me show you quickly some of our recent results, and this is last year's paper, when we use machine learning and so-called network topology features. So basically, one of the ways how we can judge brain signals, those very noisy, very messy signals. So basically, in this case, we model them using kind of graphs. No time to explain, but basically, each of the channel in our recording, we put this kind of EEG caps. Those are like, completely non-invasive, no gel, very easy, and kind of not so expensive anymore. We do it for the electrical activity from the surface of the brain, but you can also add eye tracking, other modalities. And basically, we build the graphs. So just to make this whole story short, some of our subjects end up with very complex graph. Their EEG is very kind of difficult to model. And this is many nodes and many edges. Other subjects maybe will require very simple graphs because their brain activity is kind of simple. It's easy to predict. It's easy to rebuild. So since we do everything in our lab, we also design experiments, and this is one of our experiments which is focusing on the short-term memory, implicit procedural learning, spatial-temporal memory, and emotion affect recognition. We know those are kind of weak points which can really distinguish between our strong mentally people and weaker ones. So just a quick video. So this is an example when we have short videos with emotional expression, better than pictures of this kind of girl. And then we show our subject when psychologists would kind of place it. So basically, this is a new skill. They have to learn a new skill of judging emotions on two-dimensional grid. They do it on the touchpad, and then again, there would be next emotions. We do it as a learning and also testing later. But we don't tell them we don't care about the result. We really care how busy is your brain. This is kind of a little bit difficult task, and we can evaluate how, how much power brain needs. And what is really beautiful for our different electrodes, when we look at those kind of results of this network, in this case modeling, we can really see significant differences. Our healthy blue versus MCI, this is mild cognitive impairment. So people who are kind of in the trouble. In this case, for the edges and the nodes. What is nice, I have no time to show it, this is really related to previous research with animals when they were really showing that those who have more complex signal are more aware, more conscious. Animals who get the drug, they had lower complexity, so their EEG, in this case, their brainwaves were more easy to predict. Basically showing that maybe MCI is a problem with consciousness, with awareness. When we go for in this case, clustering, those results cluster nicely, so it's a very solid result. And classification would end up around 90%. It's nice. It's really way above, chance level. The second paper we published this year, in this case, we used topological data analysis when we tried another way of modeling our brainwaves as kind of complex, multidimensional, in this case, structures. So for this one, we developed another experiment, very common in the aging science, when we use so-called reminiscence, history or pictures. So we show some pictures from the childhood, this kind of a childhood era interiors. We also show, so this could be Japanese style, Western style, modern Japanese and modern Western. And we know from the results, our subject really preferred those kind of reminiscence, history building pictures. When we look at the physical results, again, quick shortcut, we really can see that those topological analysis, those structures really differ, So again, signals from the subject who are in the MCI are more easy to predict. They require kind of simple structure. Those who are healthy have more complex one. Again, clustering looks quite fine. And this will be we compare different methods, but basically those blue one versus red one, you can really see if you are from machine learning, this is possible to classify. So basically, this is really, those features are really quite solid, and it's quite nice. So we did it for different classification, and the results are, again, kind of 95%. It's getting better. We talk with some companies, and they say, once you go above 95, this is a product. What is also nice, first time we try also regression. Because once you do this kind of evaluation, you don't want to kind of switch one day MCI, one day healthy. Maybe there's kind of continuous here. And many of those communities, scores are actually communities from 0 to 30, for example. So in this slide, we have kind of results plus minus 2, which is quite well. It's making us good as psychologists. Please remember, we are reproducing the psychological outcomes. So I will use 1 minute longer, and then let me show you our current research, which is beautifully motivated by our colleagues from California, who did some very funky intervention for the elderly for the overnight olfactory enrichment. So basically using smell simulation. Some patients were sleeping with nice aroma rooms, some sleeping without aroma. And those with aroma, doing nothing, just sleeping in the night, like stimulating their olfactory bulb, they really end up with better cognitive score. So it's really showing that olfactory stimulation might have some magic power. And what we really expect when you look at our so-called olfactory bulb and system, in the nose we have all the sensors, and we have so-called olfactory bulb, which is kind of above the nose. What is very interesting, sometimes we really ignore smell. All the vision and audio, those are interesting inputs. But smell is very important if you want to enjoy food, if you really want to be healthy. We know from COVID, smell is one of the very first ones that will be attacked. What is also interesting anatomically, our olfactory bulb, so basically this kind of center of smell processing, has direct connection to the hippocampus. All the other senses go all the way around. Our smell is very important because we learn smell all our lives. Even in the late time, you can have like new sensation. We have to learn the smell. This is maybe the idea we are stimulating our hippocampus. Hippocampus is a center for the short-term memory, like in our identification of the environment. Super important. So this paper, and you are the very first one to see it, it will be presented next month in Graz on our BCI conference. So we did this experiment, as you will see this here. This person is like, smelling some different smells. We have a device who can make an air with kind of different smells. In this case, we use 6 of them. And then basically we do the brain-computer interface, so ask them to interact. What we realized is a little bit difficult task because maybe it's new. So some of our subjects were really running at a chance level. While some of them were really very good, they could recognize all the smells, they were really interacting perfectly. So it became interesting, okay, let's forget the interaction. Let's see if we can predict from the brainwaves whether somebody is good, the task is easy, or whether somebody has really hard time with that. So basically this chance level versus this good performance. And in this case, we use different modalities. So basically, I have no time to go very deeply, but we only use kind of new electrodes they call EBG when we put them just above our olfactory bulb. So basically, they record really activity as close as possible for the brain smell center. And we have kind of the so-called our features quite separable. When we use only EEG, again, we can see that something in the frontal areas is doing. Basically, in this case, we try to judge good performance versus bad performance. Mental load versus no mental load. And when we combine those 2 electrodes, so basically brain electrodes, EEG, and those olfactory bulb, this pattern is really becoming beautifully distinguishable. When we look at the machine learning results, sorry, no time for the details, but we kind of review different of these models, and basically random forest and maybe deep neural network, beautifully separated those results. The best one, almost reaching 100%, were for the combined EEG and EBG. So basically, different modalities really help for the machine learning models. The middle one was using only EEG, and this EBG, those kind of new electrodes, were kind of the weakest one. All of them above the chance level, so it's quite nice, but basically you can really see it's really worth to add different modalities. So just as a conclusion, sorry for taking longer time, I would like to advertise that basically AI and machine learning gives us basically new excellent opportunities. We can really help ourselves and use it for the intelligence augmentation. Let's use machine not to replace us, but we can use machines to really improve us. And this basically will result with better lifestyle, lower healthcare costs. There are quite many positive things. I also would like to advertise here this concept of ikigai. Maybe that's why so many Japanese live longer, because they follow this concept of ikigai. So basically, in our lifelong education, lifelong style, we can really maybe stick to it, not only from the beginning of our careers. And maybe the most important message, take care of your brain and mental well-being. We really, as you really see from those different interventions, we have to avoid those many dangers including alcohol, including other things, sleep well and so on, because it's really good investment, having longer life. Once you accumulate enough money for the retirement, you want to enjoy retirement, not just being hospital patients. Thank you very much.